Lesson 4 for October 19 through 25, Facing Opposition. Friday, October 25. Ellen White writes in Prophets and Kings, page 644, "The opposition and discouragement that the builders in Nehemiah's day met from open enemies and pretended friends is typical of the experience that those today will have who work for God. Christians are tried not only by the anger, contempt and cruelty of enemies, but by the indolence, inconsistency, lukewarmness and treachery of avowed friends and helpers." And page 660 from the same book, Prophets and Kings, in Nehemiah's firm devotion to the work of God and his equally firm reliance on God lay the reason of the failure of his enemies to draw him into their power. The soul that is indolent falls an easy prey to temptation, but in the life that has a noble aim and absorbing purpose, evil finds little foothold. The faith of him who is constantly advancing does not weaken, for above, beneath, beyond, he recognizes infinite love, working out all things to accomplish his good purpose. God's true servants work with a determination that will not fail, because the throne of grace is their constant dependence. End of quote. And that brings us to our two discussion questions for this week. 1. Put yourself in the position of Zerubbabel and Joshua and the other leaders when those men came to them with the offer of help. Looking back now, we can see that they did the right thing by not accepting that offer. As Adventists, how can we know when we should and should not collaborate with others not of our faith? How do we decide if it is right or wrong? What criteria can we follow? And 2, all through biblical history we see the dangers of compromising our faith with the world. Indeed, the whole history of ancient Israel, right up to the Babylonian captivity, was a powerful example of this compromise. At the same time, what happens when people go to extremes to try to avoid that danger? When Jesus himself was accused of violating the Sabbath in John 9, verses 14 to 16, do we not have a powerful example of his accusers going to the other extreme? How do we find the right balance? John 9, beginning at verse 16, "Now it was a Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. He said to them, 'He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see.' Therefore some of the Pharisees said, 'This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath.' Others said, 'How can a man who is a sinner do such signs?' And there was a division among them." Inside Story. Our mission story this week is titled Money for Missionaries, and it's by Horatio Rizzo. The plan was ambitious: send 25 missionary couples from South America to share the gospel in the countries of the 1040 window. I listened intently as Ayrton Kohler, president of the South American Division, presented the Missionaries to the World initiative to 80 Seventh-day Adventist leaders from across South America at the division headquarters in Brazil's capital, Brasilia, in 2014. Pastor Kohler spoke about the challenges the Adventist Church has faced in the Middle East, and he mentioned a lack of financial and human resources. Our division can help by sending 25 married couples and covering all their expenses, including airfare, food and insurance for 5-year terms. Pastor Kohler invited us to support the initiative financially. Each of us served as the president of a conference or mission in the South American Division. I was the president of the Central West Argentine Mission, a small territory with little money. We were dependent on the Argentine Union Conference to make ends meet. Pastor Kohler suggested that our contribution be determined by how many members we had. But not all conferences and missions have the same financial situation, I thought. Another problem was a difference between official church membership and the number who attend church regularly. In my mission, official membership was 10,000 people, but in reality only 5,000 members went to church every Sabbath. I had to make a pledge. My heart pounded as I considered the issue. I knew the suggested contribution was high compared to the size of our budget. The mission treasurer was not with me to ask whether we could afford it. I didn't have much time to weigh the matter. With a prayer of faith, I pledged to donate the suggested amount for a territory with 10,000 members. Then I texted the treasurer, "This is what we have to do." He immediately texted back, "Okay." He also wanted to support the project. 2 weeks later, a big surprise awaited me in my office. A member unexpectedly sold some property and returned a large tithe. The tithe amounted to 3 times more than the funds we had given to the division's missionary initiative. I firmly believe the first person who benefits from the act of giving is the giver. The South American Division's missionary initiative ended up blessing church members in the Central West Argentine mission most of all. And there's a photo here of Horatio Rizzo, who served as president of the Central West Argentine Mission for nearly 3 years before being appointed president of the River Plate Adventist University in Argentina in 2016. 3 married couples who graduated from the university serve as missionaries in the Missionaries to the World initiative. This week's lesson has been read by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. It is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and through the services of Christian Services for the Blind. A video of this podcast also occurs on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.